Let's try to understand what this example does. How does this example relate to the author's point? He says, consider, for example, the indigenous and Afro-Caribbean traditions in Puerto Rican culture and how they influence and are influenced by other Caribbean cultures and Black cultures in the United States. So he's talking about the colonialist view earlier in this passage, and he basically says colonialists say that you have a very powerful one culture and another culture that's sort of the submissive culture, and that culture has to just be forced to fit into the dominant culture, right? Now the author's saying, well, that might not be actually true. It is possible for cultures to interact in ways where there's not one powerful culture and one weak culture that forces the weak culture to adapt to the powerful culture. Sometimes it's just not like that. And here's the example that they give. So he says, take a look at some of the Afro-Caribbeans and traditions in Puerto Rican culture. Let's see how they connect to So towards the end of this passage, the author is disagreeing with the colonialists. He's finding fault with what the colonialists are saying, and he uses this example. This example it's a subtle one. Let's go ahead and read it. Consider, for example, the indigenous and Afro-Caribbean traditions in Puerto Rican culture and how they influence and are influenced by other Caribbean cultures and Black cultures in the United States. What is he talking about here? He's talking about aspects of these cultures that don't fit into this ideology that the colonialists have. The colonialists are going to say that you have the big dominant cultures, then the weak cultures, and the weak cultures are going to be forced to adapt to the dominant culture. The author's saying that might not be true, and here's an example of what he's talking about. You can consider music. There's a lot of musical influence that comes from Puerto Rican culture to other Caribbean cultures, that goes from Caribbean cultures to Black culture in the United States, and from Black culture to Puerto Rican culture or to Caribbean cultures. And there's no one culture that's the dominant culture and forcing everybody else to adapt to their ways. Instead, it's these different groups that are just influencing each other, borrowing ideas, exchanging ideas. They're influencing and they're being influenced by. And in a way that's bringing some aspects of Puerto Rico and America and the Caribbean and Caribbean culture, it's in some ways bringing them together, but it's not that there's a dominant one that's forcing the other cultures to adapt. Instead, they're just playing with each other's ideas. They're really sharing these ideas, and they're both being influenced by and influencing each other. So they're coming together in a way that doesn't involve any coercion or inequality or one being super powerful and one being super weak or anything like that.